sure know where I've been, hanging on the promises and songs of yesterday. And I've made up my mind, I ain't wasting no more time. Here I go again, here I go again. Though I keep searching for an answer, I never seem to find what I'm looking for. Lord, I pray you give me strength to carry on, 'cause I know what it means to walk along the lonely street of dreams. Here I go again on my own, going down the only road I've ever known. Like a drifter, I was born to walk alone, and I've made up my mind. I ain't wasting no more time. I'm just another heart in need of rescue, waiting on love's sweet charity. And I'm gonna hold on for the rest of my days, 'cause I know what it means to walk along the lonely street of dreams. And here I go again on my own, going down the only road I've ever known. Like a drifter, I was born to walk alone, and I've made up my mind. I ain't wasting no more time, but here I go again. Here I go again. Here I go again. Here I go. Cause I know what it means to walk along the lonely street of dreams. And here I go again on my own, going down the only road I've ever known. Like a drifter, I was born to walk alone, and I've made up my mind. I ain't wasting no more time. And here I go again on my own, going down the only road I've ever known. Like a drifter, I was born to walk alone, 'cause I know what it means to walk along the lonely street of dreams. And here I go again on my own, going down the only road I've ever known.
Don't let me down easy. If you're gonna leave me, baby, go and leave me all the way. Don't ask for all your things back, cussing out my name, yeah, just to go and take back what you say. Burn all the bridges, don't ask forgiveness, walk away like I'm someone you hate. Don't let me down easy. If you're gonna leave me, baby, go and leave me all the way.
If it's over, so fuck it. Just don't act like my love wasn't nothing. Like I wasn't the one you was holding that night, telling all of your secrets and hugging. Guess you right, it's too good to be true. Was a point, all I needed was you. But shit, time after time, I just fussing and fighting. It's time that you do what you do. And it's cool. Mama said it was fish in the sea, I got lost in the pool. Knew it was coming, I watched how you move, how you turn your back on me and leave me to lose. Remember the text, how you said that you do. Said that you never leave, we would fight till it's due. But as it went on, I was fighting for you. Since the text turned green, why the fuck it ain't blue? Guess you done and I get it. Said you stay and you wanted my name and you left, so I'm guessing that you never meant it. Said you try and hold on cause the love was so strong, now I'm standing alone in this kitchen. Singing sad songs, but I'm knowing that this shit don't last long. If you leaving, then leave cause your bag's gone. But just know you can never come back home.
Don't let me down easy. If you're gonna leave me, baby, go and leave me all the way. Don't ask for all your things back, cussing out my name, yeah, just to go and take back what you say. Burn all the bridges, don't ask forgiveness. Walk away like I'm someone you hate. Don't let me down easy. If you're gonna leave me, baby, go and leave me all the way.
If you say that you done it, no take back. Said you fell out of love and I hate that. But see me, I was stuck like a drug, really feeling for love and somehow I can't shake back. When you walked out that door, I was hurting. All the dreams in my head, you was perfect. You remember the very first time that we killed and I reached for your hand where the nerves at. Time to pass, but shit, that's what it do. It be times I be sick sitting thinking about you. It was death do its part. You gave me the blue, really played with my heart. Left me lost in confused. Like this shit was fair game, but you made it the rules. On my heart, left a scar and a bruise. Hope that you can stand on all the shit that you did. Cause I'm done, y'all finally through.
Don't let me down easy. If you're gonna leave me, baby, go and leave me all the way. Don't ask for all your things back, cussing out my name, yeah, just to go and take back what you say. Burn all the bridges, don't ask forgiveness. Walk away like I'm someone you hate. Don't let me down easy. If you're gonna leave me, baby, go and leave me all the way.
Do you have the time to listen to me whine about nothing and everything all at once? I am one of those melodramatic fools, neurotic to the bone, no doubt about it. Sometimes I give myself the creeps. Sometimes my mind plays tricks on me. It all keeps adding up. I think I'm cracking up. Am I just paranoid? Am I just stuck? I went to a shrink to analyze my dreams. She says it's like a sex that's bringing me down. I went to a whore. He said my life's a bore. Choke with my white cause it's bringing her down. Sometimes I give myself the creeps. Sometimes my mind plays tricks on me. It all keeps adding up. I think I'm cracking up. Am I just paranoid? Grasping to control, so I better hold on. Sometimes I give myself the creeps. Sometimes my mind plays tricks on me. It all keeps adding up. I think I'm cracking up. Am I just paranoid? Like a son?
You know what the question, Adam, that I tell all my end user friends when they go visit a trade show or they get a demo from a manufacturer. I said the first question that you as an end user should ask the vendor or the manufacturer demoing the product is, hey, manufacturer, where do you suck?
Absolutely. I think it's a great call out because I tell you, the people who are successful in getting my business are those who are honest, right? And when you challenge them on something and say, so you're saying this, but I really know how this works. And what about this? And like, yeah, that's true, right? That honesty goes a long way. I'd rather buy a B product from someone who's honest with me than something that's supposed to be an A+ product from someone I can't trust, right?
We ran weapons detection systems, walk-through weapons detection systems on every secondary campus. And we did, every time kids come to school, every morning, every time you went outside, came back in, right? And you see all these crazy articles about how these weapons detections and lines wrapped around schools. Well, that was because there's a people problem there. There was an implementation problem there. They didn't implement the product right. Stop blaming the product for your failures. And that's what we get into in the security world is they want to say, well, it's a product problem. Well, 99% of the time, it's not a product problem. It's a people problem.
Man, I tell you what, I am fired up today because I got the man himself, Ron Self, back on SVIP. But this time we're going to do a live interview. That's right. Welcome to SVIP Live, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Taylor May, the founder of Security VIP, SVIP for short. Now, if you guys caught the podcast episode of Ron and I, a lot of truth was said, a lot of authenticity was said. The guy does not hold back, dude. And that's why I like the guy. Number one, but number two, he's got so much credentials and credibility about him. So before we dive into the discussion today, everything is live again. As a reminder, guys, this is my weekly series with end users in the security industry. So if you have a question, please drop it in the chat. We are live on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Please drop a question in the chat if you would like me to ask it to Ron himself. I do want to give a shout out to our sponsors, XSponse, who see a QR code on the screen here. If you want to check out what they do, I actually have a great solution for school districts and higher ed. So please go check out XSponse. You can scan that QR code. And if you're not subscribed to SVIP yet, what the hell are you doing? There's a QR code on top here and subscribe to SVIP. It makes you become a subscriber. But Ron, enough of the intros, my brother. How are we doing today?
Dude, awesome, man. I love that intro where I was talking about the weapons detection system, man.
Doesn't that get you fired up, dude? I mean, that was like the great snippet from that podcast discussion. I was like, you know what? That's going to be a great intro and a good segue to our discussion today.
Dude, as I was listening to that, I just remembered a post I did on LinkedIn probably a couple of weeks ago, and I was talking about that exact same thing, right? And it gets more people active than anything because it is a people problem, right? It's not a product problem, and that's all we see is there was a pretty good back and forth on LinkedIn between myself and another guy and somebody else here just a week or so ago about a product, right? And they were bringing up an old article about a product where there was a product problem, when in reality it was not a product problem. It was a people problem. But guess what? It's easier to say, hey, that microphone that Taylor's talking into is the problem. It's not Taylor, it's the microphone, right? Just because Taylor can't talk into that microphone, we're going to blame the microphone, right?
That's right.
That's just what it is, man. And it's wild. It's like the wild, wild west in school security, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's why I like speaking with individuals like yourself, because you are honest, you are real, you're authentic, transparent, and you don't hold back. And like the intro video we just saw with Adam Smith of UC Health, I told him, like, look, man, first question you should ask the vendors is, hey, where's your setbacks? Where do you suck? Right. I mean, because that's really when rapport and trust is developed, which you know all too well, Ron. But I guess for those tuning in, Ron, today, again, we're live across multiple platforms here. Why don't you give some context about your experience and background real quick?
Sure, dude. I'm 26 years in, man. Law enforcement, school security. I started off in law enforcement, did that for about 7 years, and then I jumped into school security, directing school security departments. Did a small school district of about 3,000 students, and jumped into Little Rock. And did that which had 23,000 students. So I did almost a little over 19 years, almost 20, directing school security departments. And then about a year ago, I jumped into the private sector and went to work for a general contractor, oddly enough, right? Because everybody goes, man, what's a security guy doing working for a general contractor, right? And the problem is that Schools simply just don't know what they don't know when it comes to security, right? And that's trying to for it, whether it's a remodel or whether it's a ground up build, a brand new build. It's trying to help them get those security points right the first time and not 2 years down the road when they realize what's going on. And plus, the great thing about that is you just being able to have a conversation, right? Because you can almost bet that if there's a product out there, I've heard of it, I've dealt with it, I know somebody who has dealt with it and can get you the real answer. We can figure out where it sucks. So what that Adam guy said, was find out where they suck, right? We can find that out first, and we can get you to the right product. And we don't rep a product, right? So man, there's no skin off my back. I'm not trying to sell you a product. I'm just trying to give you the real information about the product. So anyways, kind of that's a long way around. Throughout that time, I wound up getting my specialist in educational leadership, got a superintendent's license in the state of Texas, and then Arkansas calls it a district admin license, but the same thing in the state of Arkansas as well. So it's kind of a weird way around it. Undergrad and master's is in emergency management. So just kind of all the way around, but mostly in school security. And, when 19 years ago, when I took my first job in school security, I think there was 2 of us in the state of Arkansas. There wasn't many at all. And it sure wasn't a school with 3,000 students that had a director of security, right? It was just a small, very small group of us, and we had to figure it out as we went. I'll be honest with you, about quit 5 times that first 2 years, because it was like, what in the world have I gotten into, right? You go from being a police officer to a school, and next thing you know, you got to deal with politics, right? And school boards and trying to figure out that. And I was like, what in the world, but here we are.
Well, the comment on a couple points you just made there, Ron. Obviously, the end user element, the end user feedback when it comes to products and solutions is critical, and that's part of the reason why I started the Verified series at SVIP, because it includes end users feedback and testing and engagement in the actual report of a solution or a product versus just being tested in a lab or so XYZ manufacturer said it's XYZ accurate, right, or whatever it may be. So I love the credibility with end users, and you're right, man. It was, I'm sure some people are questioning me like, why, Taylor, you have someone working for a GC on a live interview session? But you look at Ron's background, guys and girls, obviously a lot of experience in K through 12 and school safety and security, both at a leadership level and a director of security level. But you look at Baldwin and Shell Construction, where you guys are really at the ground level, where you guys can actually implement the basics, which we talk about a lot, the basics of safety and security, and before you get all the bells and whistles. So maybe talk about your role there at Baldwin, man.
And I'll just say that I'm still heavily involved in K-12 security, right?
Yeah.
So I'm still serve on the board of the National Council of School Safety Directors with Zero Now, that conglomerate there. In about 2 weeks, I'll be at the end of the month, I'll be at Campus Safety in Austin, at the Campus Safety Conference. They're dealing with, with K-12. So still super, super heavy involved in K-12, and which is the reason with Baldwin, right? And it's going out and meeting with school districts, and I'll be in a school tomorrow meeting with the superintendent to help them do a school security walk around, to help them figure out what they've got, what they need. And because the reality of it is we've got schools, we've got superintendents, and because that's what's a lot of time running your school security, right? So the average size school district in the United States is 2,500 students. That's the average size school district. So it's not the LAs, it's not the New Yorks, it's not the Little Rocks, it's the small rural school districts. Well, guess what? Those rural school districts don't have. They can't afford to hire a dedicated school security director. They may have an SRO, they may have a local police officer that comes and helps them, but they don't have a dedicated school safety director, which is the difference, right? So you can't say police officer and the school safety director are the same. Sometimes they have to wear the same hats, but there is a difference between the two and having a dedicated, right? And so it's helping those schools. My role with Baldwin is helping those schools navigate those grants, navigate what they need, right? Because oftentimes schools want to go to the shiny, flashy things, right? They want to go to the pretty stuff, and they want to go to the stuff that makes the big splash, right? And most of the time that's X, Y, and Z, and you don't even have A, B, and C, right? The reality
preach, brother. What's the drones and the fucking robots and
dude, the drones, man. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Here it is. The reality of it is, Taylor, is it's 2025, brother. And not every school has a working lock on their classroom
Mm.
door, and they're worried about drones and uh, visitor management and all this other mess. You got too much. You got some basic things that you need to worry about before you start looking at all that. So, the sales guys are just out there trying to do their job, right? They're just out there trying to sell, and they're not trying to help them out. And that's where we come in to say, hey, wait a minute, let's back up, and then if you're trying to build a brand new school, okay, well, you want to build a brand new school, and the architects want to put in the prettiest things, and they want to put in 10,000 panes of glass in your school because they look pretty, right? It's all about aesthetics. Well, it's about finding that balance between aesthetics and safety, right? We don't want them to look like prisons, and we don't want them to look like, they're wide open either, right? So we got to find that midpoint, and that's where we come in to help and say, hey, let's look at this. What about this option? What about this, right? Film, I want safety film. And they go out and they buy 6 mil, whatever the smallest safety film is, right? Well, I got safety film. Yep, you do, right? You got enough that if somebody wants to kick it, it's not going to break. But you don't have much more than that. So don't rely on that, right?
Right.
And so that's kind of what that piece is with Baldwin and Shell, and trying to, just to serve as a resource and a relationship to people and just to help them. That's all it is.
Ron, do you feel like when you speak with these superintendents, and obviously coming from your background there, do you feel like most superintendents get it, or they need to do something, or do you have a situation? And I've had conversations before in the past. I know Mike Petranka, well respected, but what the reason why I think he was so successful at Texas City is because the superintendent let him do his job.
Right.
So maybe you have a school safety security director at a school, but the superintendent is too controlling or too involved. Are you seeing that at all? And the superintendents you speak with, or you see that most kind of understand the posture that you have to have now in school safety?
Taylor, I think we see a variety of everything, right?
Yeah.
You've got the superintendents that think they know everything from school security to, teaching a course and to running a school. And you've got schools. I mean, I'll tell you, my first superintendent, I felt like we got just a trophy, right? We got a security director. We don't let him do anything, but we got one, right?
Well, that's
And
my
that,
point.
that's
Like,
going on right now,
yeah.
right? Schools have school safety directors that they're not letting do what they need to do, right? And Mike Matringa is a great guy, and me and Mike talk a lot, right? And Mike will tell you straight up. He's very, very straight on what you need to do and what you don't need to do, and that's exactly what a superintendent needs. They need someone that is dedicated to school safety and security, that doesn't hold back. They need the truth. They don't need some fluff, right? Something that we don't want to hear about. We want the truth is what they need, and they're not always getting that, right? And they're not always listening to that. If then that's why you're out there putting. Here's the deal. I understand that the lipstick, the shiny stuff, is what helps with the parents, right?
Yeah.
It's
It's
what helps
sexy.
with
Yeah.
the school boards,
Yeah.
right? And if you want to do that, that's fine. But you best be on the back end doing the real work, right? Well, it's kind of almost like a shell game, right? You look over here at this pretty shiny stuff and let us do what we need to do over here on this side, right? And as long as you're doing that, then if that's what you want to do with the shiny stuff, go right ahead. But you better be getting the ABCs done first, right? And we're starting to see schools come around a little more security wise. 25 years ago it was like, whatever, we don't need school security. It's still, you're still fighting campuses to this day that were wide open, right? I came from Little Rock schools, and we had Central High School was we know how Central High School is, right? It was built during a time where we wanted people to come in. We wanted kids to come in off the streets. We wanted parents to come in off the street, and we had to turn it into a building where we didn't want it, right? So superintendents are realizing that they got to do something different.
Well, you didn't have social media back then, which is probably why they built,
Go
half
back
of that. So the social media influence now is why these kids are going. I'm not here to beat up on kids or beat up on anything, but I think the issue with open campuses, it's hard, number one, to protect, and if you're
Yeah.
focused too much on the bells and whistles but not having basic locks on doors, which blows my mind that we don't have access control on every single damn classroom door in today's current landscape. It's wrong, right?
Yeah.
So I think, looking ahead and looking at these conversations you've had with school districts and leaders and superintendents. Phase one, you said the basics, ABC. Let's just describe that real quick. What's the basics to someone new as far as an ABC approach to school safety? It's locks, it's basic cabling. Walk me through that.
Dude, it's locks, it's cameras, right? Because
Yeah.
cameras are, and I used to tell folks that if there was one thing I could never take out of my schools, it was cameras, right? You might think that that's the least effective thing that there is, but the principal thinks that that's the most effective thing there is, right? And it's about keeping them happy. It's about culture, man. It's about learning that those buildings are theirs, right? So you want the teacher from the English hall or the parapro from the science hall. When I'm walking through your campus, and they don't know who I am, and I don't have an ID on, you want them saying, "Who are you? Can I help you? Can I direct you to the office?" Right? I shouldn't be able to walk through your campus for any amount of time and not get approached, right? And your staff should feel empowered to do that, right? It's that culture piece. It's
And how
learning.
much does culture cost, Ron? Tell me the dollar amount.
Not a dime, brother.
Yeah,
That's free.
that's what I'm talking
That's
about.
the biggest thing, right?
Yeah.
Is it's free, and but it's one of the hardest things to do, right? And sometimes I think, let's go back to what we used to. Used to be the thing is that nobody could call 911, right? A teacher was not able to call 911, and I lived through this, right? Only the office could call 911. So if there was an incident in a teacher's room, and say there was a compound fracture, kid fell out, we needed to get the ambulance there, or whatever, heart issue, whatever, they could not call 911. They had to go to the office, and the office could then call 911. And you think, looking back on that, that's crazy, right? I guarantee you there's still schools out there like that, and if there is, they've lost their minds. That they need to empower their teachers to be able to. So we go back to a time to where we didn't empower those teachers to do anything, right? They all had to ask permission to even call 911, which is the simplest of things, right? So they didn't feel like that was their job to go and ask who a person was walking down the hallway, right? It should be everybody's job. And that goes back to trying to get that culture change. Do you have a plan, right? Do you have if I come up to you, to any teacher in your building, and say, "Where is your off-campus evacuation spot?" They should be able to tell me without hesitation. And so many people say, the principals will say, "Well, we talked to someone and they said we could probably come over there, but there's no agreement in place. Nobody knows, right? And what are you going to do if there's an active shooter, right? And you're out there on a playground. Well, we're not running back in the building. If there's a shooter in the building, right? Run away,
Right.
right? So where are you going? Do you have a plan? Do you know what that is, right? And it's learning to where, and the simplest of things, such as fire drills, right? You run a fire drill, and these are things that you try to get schools to do all the time, but a lot of them don't like to do it, right? Because it's inconvenience. Security is inconvenience, right?
Of course.
So you run a fire drill, block off a door. It's simple. Block off a door and tell them to find another exit out, right? You will find that most of your teachers don't know where all your exits are. Why? Because they get in that routine, and they come
Right.
through one door, they go out one door. If they're going to lunch, they go out one door.
Complacency.
They don't know where the door is right there to the left, right? Same thing with a plane. And I don't know how many times you get on a plane, and during the safety demonstration, people are sitting there on their phones, they're reading their books, they're playing on their laptops, they're not paying attention to safety. I don't care how many times you get on a plane, pay attention to safety demonstration. Read that stupid little card that's in the back of the window. You know what I do? I always look and see who's in the exit row, so I know who I can throw out of the way so I can open the damn door. Because that's what's going to happen, right? Because they're not
Yeah.
paying attention.
Right.
That's the same way in a school, brother. They're not paying attention. They're not, and that's simple things that you can change, right?
Yeah.
And the electronic panic type systems, panic badges, panic button things. That's becoming a big thing right now, right?
Oh, yeah, almost a
And
mandate. Yeah.
yeah, and so you've got Alyssa's law flying like
Yep.
crazy through the states and creating that, right? And so, do you have the ability to? Are you training your folks? Are you using it? Are you testing it? Are you doing what you are supposed to be doing, or are you just going to blame the product when it doesn't work because you hadn't been testing it, right?
Right. And the thing is, I mean, you get a lot of good points around. I mean, obviously, complacency comes into the factor, and we're all human, right? We all get in our motions and our routines, and we're not probably tested enough when it comes to security and
Yeah.
safety, which is a good thing when you run these drills. And by the way, I mean, who the hell is still doing fire drills, Ron? Like, we're in 2025, brother. Like, are buildings burning down still? I mean,
No,
I know there's
here's the deal. Let's be real. Let's talk about that a minute,
okay,
right? Because law is that you have to do a fire drill once a month. Every single month, you
but
have
you
to do a
can't do an
fire
active shooter drill. Is
drill.
that
Man,
is
most
that?
places got it once or twice a year. You need an active shooter drill about once or twice a year, right? And that's some states. And if you get into the other states, and they don't want you doing them at all, right? But that's that now. Now get on everybody out there listening. Get on Google and tell me when the last time that somebody died from a fire.
Is my whole point. Yeah,
It was a Catholic school back in the, I don't know, long time ago, right?
yeah,
But because we've done everything we can do to keep kids from dying in fires, right? We train for it. We have, if you walk through a school, there's a fire alarm system. There's a fire extinguishers that have to be checked every month to make sure they're working correctly. There's evacuation points. There's exit signs. There's, everything's there, right? Um, but we can't get schools to put room numbers on the outside of the windows so that when the SWAT team shows up, they know where they're going. Right?
right, right.
It's simple stuff, man, and that's that whole numbering of doors, right? So there's FEMA has a regulation where they want you to number the doors and the outside windows, and schools are still not wanting to do that. And it's. I'm not saying it's free because it's not, but it's not an extreme cost. It's not a big lift, right? Find a grant. They're out there. Get you
Yeah.
a grant, find some money, and get it done.
Well, I mean, it's a good segue to obviously my sponsor into the Xbox. They have a great solution for like panic devices and triggers and alerts and
Mhm.
wall mounts and displays and strobes. I think that's a great segue there. But to your point, I mean, Ron, obviously schools and higher ed, they're understaffed, under resourced, underfunded. And so one of the things, man, I've contemplated at SVIP is taking a portion of our revenue and donating to under resourced end users, in being school districts or churches. In fact, we're actually helping out a church in Orlando in a couple months by hooking them up with some new cameras, new IP cameras, because they've been running analog cameras for so long. I'm not saying they've had
Yeah.
issues or anything, but it's like you see people like that who really need a new evolution of security, and like you don't see enough donations or charitable people out there that are willing to give. And so I think that's one of the cool things that um, that we're doing is we're helping out these people that need the resources that they don't are available to get just because of funding. So
Yep,
I
man.
want
And,
to.
here's the deal too. I'll just piggyback on that just real quick. Is schools have money, they're just not spending it correctly. That's the problem,
It's going to
brother.
the football stadium, Ron.
Yeah,
What are you talking
yeah.
about?
Well, so
I mean, I played football. I love the Texas football stadiums here, but you're telling me that's more important than saving someone's life? I don't know. There's a tough
any guy's got
conversation.
the fancy jerseys behind him,
Oh, I'm
on
a
his
has been
island.
now, brother. I'm a has been. Old days. I'll remind our audience, if you have a question for Ron, please drop your comment or question in the chat function, whether you're streaming on YouTube or LinkedIn or Facebook. Please drop a
Yeah,
question for Ron. I'll pin it and we'll ask him away. Happy to answer the questions. But I guess my next question for you, Ron, and we talked a lot about on the podcast. That's one of my favorite podcast episodes. I'm kind of biased because you're a fun person to talk with. Um, the biggest challenge, I know school's out. We're in summer mode. School starts back up in August. It's coming around the corner. We just had 4th of July, but biggest challenge, man, for kids going to school. I don't want to talk about active shooter, active aggressor, or active assailant. I know that's a problem. I know shootings are a problem. We talk about culture. We talk about mental health. Is it still behavioral issues? Is it bad parenting? Is it conflict resolution? Is it all of the above? I'm getting deep on these issues right now because I know what some of these answers are going to be. But and cybersecurity, kids are hacking shit now. Kids are wanting to hack things. And in fact, in Texas, man, they removed cell phones out of the school now, so kids don't have school cell phones in Texas when they go to school.
Arkansas did it too, man.
Yeah. So what is the challenge now? I mean, and honestly, like going to school now is probably a breeze because you have
Yeah,
ChatGPT and everything. That's a whole
yeah,
different topic. But what is the
yeah.
biggest challenge, brother, that you're seeing right now heading into the next school year with ISDs?
Social media, man. And I think that's one of the big reasons that schools are getting rid of the phones, right? Because it's just a constant battle with social media, whether it's the next TikTok trend, right? You want to, I got a good buddy was a facilities guy for years, and he often said, if you have a product and you want to test it, put it in any middle school in the United States, and we'll see if it works or not, or if it holds up, right? If you got this new water fountain, or you got this new sink or whatever faucet, put it in a middle school, then let the next TikTok challenge hit and let me tell and then tell me how it works, right? That's just what we're dealing with, right, man? I mean, there was a TikTok challenge where they were sticking paper clips in the USB ports of their Chromebooks and setting them on fire, right? I mean, these kids were doing this, right? So social media, and it's not just the TikTok challenges, right? Social media, it's that's, I'm glad you said that about active shooter, right? Because as a school safety director, as I spent 19 years as school safety director, when I went to school at work every day, it was not active shooter that I was worried about, right? It was the social media chatter and the fight that was going to occur between third and fourth period, right? It was the kid that got up that morning because his mom been cracked out, hanging out all night long, got his brother and sister together and got to school, and we're trying to figure out a way to get him breakfast, right? Because he didn't eat, right? It's those issues that are facing security directors every day, and it's that social media, man. It's just these kids, COVID, and I know we like to blame a lot of things on COVID, right? And in one of these days we'll get away from that point, and maybe we'll say, well, we can't blame COVID anymore. Maybe, I don't know. But conflicts resolution skills were gone after COVID, man. These kids spent so much time on the internet, right? And social media was already contributing to that, right? So they couldn't sit down and have a conversation with them. And then these kids went through COVID, and now they're attending class online. They're going to college online, right? And so they completely eliminated what little bit of personal interaction that they had, and it went completely online. And now they can't, you can't sit down, and if me and you have a discussion, and we don't agree, right? We have the ability to talk that out and agree to disagree and move on, or I see your side or you see my side, right? And these kids just don't do that, and they're just back and forth, and then it leads to fights, and most of them can't fight either, right?
Well, it's not just kids though, right, Ron? I mean, it's the
Oh,
parenting that don't have conflict resolution, man. We talk about that. Talk about the lack of parenting who don't even have maturity enough to handle a conflict or have a
dude,
civil conversation.
Dude, if you had two kids get into a fight and their parent came to the school, you almost 90% of the time knew exactly where it came from, right? Because I couldn't tell you how many times we would have these crazy knockdown, drag out fights at a high school, and then the parents come up there and we wound up arresting the parents because the way the parents acted when they got there, right? It wasn't the parents coming up. And I'm not saying you got to come up and take the word for the school, right? I'm not saying you got to come up and say, whatever you say, Mr. Principal. I'm not saying that at all, right? We probably got it on camera. We would show parents the camera footage and they'd still deny it. Like the camera was lying to you, that AI had somehow jumped in there and changed the video, right? I
Insane.
promise you, we weren't that advanced, right? And so the parents didn't have, conflict resolution skills, and I used to always say, we ban parents, right? Parents come up and then ban them. And I always used to say that if you came up, and it was something we were working on when I left, is that we came up with some kind of an anger management type course or conflict resolution course, that if we agreed with the parents would take it, then we would let them back in the school, right? You find a way to let them back in the school. It's not necessarily that they don't want to act right, is they don't know how to act right. That's just simply as that, man. It's crazy, it's, we're in a world of, if we don't get our way, we go out and chant on the streets and throw fire bombs at people. That's just the world we live in, right? That's just not how it works in the real world, in every day. So, social media, and that's probably why a lot of that whole phone ban goes away. And there's a lot of different thoughts on the phone ban, right? And they say, well, security guys will tell you, well, you should allow the kids to have their phone because they can call 911 if an active shooter event happens. Well, maybe. We had them years ago. There was no phones when I went to school, right? You went down to the office and dropped a quarter in the payphone, right? They didn't even let you use the office phone. You had to pay to call your parents, right? And you had to get permission to pay to call your parents, right? So we made it just fine. There's things like various active shooter response and panic type systems that can be implemented to overcome that. So
Yeah, one of the things, I mean, you're right, man. The social media influences is through the roof nowadays. I mean, obviously, I grew up with like MySpace and like Xanga, which was like a blog back in the day. But even like going to high school, dude, like we had an open campus high school where I went to school, and we had a phone, but like I wasn't even on my phone. I was talking to kids throughout the hallways. We always had a meetup spot. Weren't really
yeah,
on the phone nowadays, which I think there are definitely pros with putting phones up away from kids. Obviously, the people that the antagonizers are like, well, it's a safety issue, or there's a medical issue, which I understand medical issues. Maybe you need your phone for medical
right.
concerns, but also a learning experience, man. Like these teachers who truly love to teach kids and educate kids are going against the chat GBTs and the technology and the influence on social media. And so I feel like that's a tough uphill battle for some of these kids nowadays, man, where I can research something online or learn something online instantaneously. So why the hell do I need to go to a school and listen to someone bitch for an hour and preach for an hour? That's another conversation too. That's a hot topic, but and that's not just in schools, man. That's happening throughout other industries too, like casinos, for example.
Yeah, but we rely on that crap too much, though, Taylor.
I
That's the
agree.
problem.
I agree.
And I don't know. I mean, if you go on Google right now and you type in whatever you want to type in, right? The first thing that pops up is an AI overview, right? And it gives you an AI overview, dude. I
Copilot, yeah.
couldn't tell you how many times that is wrong. The AI overview is just simply not always right, right? But people stop with that AI overview. They've gotten lazy now, even with their Googling, right? They stop with the AI overview and don't go down and click on a couple links to actually figure out what's going on, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like Wikipedia. I mean, I teach adjunct for college, ASU, Arkansas State in Jonesboro, right? I teach disaster preparedness courses. We still
Nice.
have to remind the kids these days that Wikipedia is not a source, right? We're still saying, "Hey, Wikipedia is not a source, man." But you've got people out there that will argue up and down with you that if Wikipedia said it, it's right. Well, guess what? If Wikipedia said it today, I can go change it in about 10 minutes. It'll say
Yep.
something else, right?
Yep. Free tool.
I mean, I'm not saying it's not a good starting point to figure out some information, right? Might give you a good heading, but they'll never know the days back when, and I'll show my age a little bit, but when you had to go into the living room and find the family book of encyclopedias and look it up, right? So I'm not saying it's all bad, right?
Yeah.
It's still good, but you got to quit relying on AI. It's just not. It's a good starting point, but someone writes you a paragraph or an email or a paper and it's AI, man. It doesn't take but just a few seconds to figure out it's AI. So,
No, I'm with you, man. There's a lot of people that are weaponizing AI too, and so I've
oh
seen
yeah,
some cool technology around
and
protecting that.
and here's the deal, dude. I was using it on my cameras, right? It was great for camera systems. So we had a system to where, if I wanted to see, show me all times a red pickup truck pulled into this parking lot, right? And it would
Right.
go highlight that footage within seconds, which used to take us hours
Right.
to go figure out and look at it, right? So there's some really cool tech out there, right? If I was looking for a guy in a black shirt with white SVIP and his hat on backwards, it would tell me where it is, right?
Douchebag alert right there.
Yeah. So it's some cool tech, right? And
Yeah.
it's about using it and understanding it, So
Well, we talked about this too, Ron, on the podcast. One of my biggest concerns now as a father, I've got a 2-year-old daughter and just had a newborn son, is when they get to school. One of the biggest challenges, what I've seen on the digital side, is deepfake technology, where I'm impersonating a parent or a teacher or a coach or a counselor or a superintendent and saying, hey, this is Ron. Hey, little Jimmy, I need you to send me money. I need you to go do this. I need you, whatever it may be. That kind of technology now exists in deepfake technology. So that when I talk about weaponizing AI, yes, there's a lot of good things that come with AI, but there's a lot of bad things, nefarious actors that come with AI, where they're now attacking children and sex offenders on the dark web to pedophiles. It's nasty fucking shit. And there for so long, dude, I tried to find solutions that would help prevent deepfake technology. Say, hey, you know what? This is not legitimate. The voice is off, the image is off, the video is off, all that content's off. And for like the last 4 or 5 years, I'd never found anything. It was always about educating and resources, which is great. I definitely want to educate. But there was a company called Swear that came out not too long ago who has a solution to pretty much authenticate every single piece of content that comes out, which is amazing. Because you think about like MGM, Ron, MGM got hacked, and the way they got hacked was a voice line over the phone. You know, that someone impersonated an employee or executive and got access to confidential information, and obviously that was a ransomware attack, and they got paid out. But you think about technology that can help recognize that or detect that, especially in the school districts, when it comes to people impersonating others or taking targets of others. I mean, that's a huge value add today. So I think the education piece is critical. Cybersecurity is huge, but beyond physical security, cybersecurity, hacking things is a cool thing now with kids. But being able to have that kind of solution now, I think is a good call out.
Dude, and a lot of it's still common sense, right? You got to ask the right.
Amen, dude.
If TaylorMade's calling me wanting, $5,000, well, wait a minute. So does TaylorMade usually call you and ask for $5,000, right? So you got to use a little bit of.
I'll take $5,000, Ron.
Yeah. So you let me borrow 10, and I'll.
Yeah, there you go.
So it's about and that's where we see a lot of issues with email, right? So they're calling. You get an email from HR saying, "Hey, we need to change your payroll deduction." Well, how many times has HR emailed you and said, "Let's change your payroll deduction," right? But you still got people out there clicking on it and going through everything. So AI is just going to make it even harder, right? And for folks that probably might not even need a computer to actually function in the world. So
we got about 20 minutes left on this live session. Our audience is a little shy today, Ron. This is actually a first one. I usually get like a lot of questions that come in. So I do want to encourage the people that are listening, and we got about 40 people listening across all platforms. Drop a question. Don't be shy. Drop a question.
I'm just so good that I've covered it.
You don't need questions, right?
You don't need questions, right?
Everyone deserves a question. I don't care if it's stupid. If you have a question, drop your question for Ron. I definitely want to ask it. I'm going to bring up a hot take, and Ron knows this hot take. But going back to kind of like the active aggressor, active assailant, obviously it's not as common as we think it is. I know it's a horrible thing when it does happen. It is common more than we think, but it's not as common as today, I think, in 2025, in my opinion. There was a conversation, Ron, about obviously removing SROs and also equipping teachers with guns. And so these are hot takes, man, where I know your belief on this. You know my belief on this, but I guess for the professional school safety security expert opinion and counsel, tell me your thoughts.
Well, let's start with the SRO thing. I was an SRO. I'm a big fan of an SRO program. With that being said, if it is run correctly, because not all of them are, right? I'm not talking about cops in schools, right? Cops in schools and SROs are two different things, right? SROs are out there building relationships, and they're out there being a helping hand. They are not the person that the principal says, if you don't do right, I'm going to have officer so-and-so come arrest you, right? If you're doing that, you're not doing right. You're not building a great program. You're building a cops in schools program, right? And that's where a lot of the school to prison pipeline, right? So a lot of people feed that school to prison pipeline, and it comes off of those programs that are not being run correctly, right? You got to have the right person. You got to have the right it has to be a total approach, right? It's got to be an SRO has to be there building relationships and being friends. And I can tell you right now, me being an SRO is what brought me here, right? It was a relationship with a student who was an elementary kid who wound up having some medical issues that kind of messed with my heart, right? Because I was this big bad cop off the street that didn't want to be there and turned me, right? So if you're running those programs correctly, that's great. Guns on teachers, I'm not a fan of it. It's just not there. Teachers are there to teach. They are not there to be security. They are not there to have guns, right? I get some of the argument. Well, I'm out in a rural school district and it's going to take the sheriff's office 35 minutes to get to me. Well, then maybe you need to hire some full time folks. That's maybe what you need to do that's dedicated toward that. It is not your teacher. I don't want my English teacher sitting up there teaching English and walking up here with a gun, right? And then they'll say, well, and I hear this response a lot. Well, ours are concealed. If you think every student in your school doesn't know that they're carrying a weapon, then you're
Right.
losing your mind, right? Those kids know. They know everything, man. They know. So you don't know. I'm not a fan of that. And I know that there's and you're just coming from the guy who's pro guns, right? I mean, I'm a Southern guy. I carried them in a school, law enforcement. I'm a hunter. I'm that guy. But I'm telling you right now, they have their place in the school on a teacher is not one of them.
Simply said, man. And what's funny when you answer those questions, and I call out people, we get questions. And so just like that, we have a couple questions that came in. The first one is from David Tyndall. I'm going to pin it in the chat here for you, Ron. David's a good friend of mine. What is your favorite product or solution for campus security? Now, I know you don't go to you promote products, brother, but maybe you can talk about a product or solution that is really ideal and innovative and you use day in, day out.
Yeah, I would say too is I go back to that cameras and I go back to that AI piece that we were able to build into those cameras, right? So if you've got a camera system, and I think you talked about the church having it, but schools are actually doing it. There's schools still out there with CCTV cameras, right? If you're still using the word CCTV in a camera system, man, dude, you're about 30 years behind, right? And so those cameras are having that AI and being able to utilize that function to detect what's going on within that campus, right? And being able to quickly search that information is probably the top. Two, dude, I think by the time I left, I think I had 9 total campuses that had access control on every single
Nice.
classroom door, right? It was not just keys, it was badge access on every single classroom door. And if you can build that in, it's an expensive ask. And most of those campuses were new builds, right? Or extremely major remodels, right? But if you're doing that, then go ahead and do that. The third would be some type of wearable panic button, not an app, not something on your phone, some type of wearable. And there's numerous companies out there that have it.
Xbox is one of them, guys. That our sponsors today. Check them out. Great response. Another question comes in, Ron. This is from Chadwick Colton. What's your favorite part about working in security, and what's your least favorite? I like that question.
Dude, and I'll go back to education, because I spent 19 years in education. It was all about the kids, man. It was all about knowing that I had some part in helping with those kids whenever they came to school, and I had some minute part in sending them home better than what they were when they came, right? And it's just about keeping those kids safe. And people and let's go back to that airplane thing, man. I mean, that's a reality, right? You ever watch when the airplane disasters show? I mean, watching, and most of them are because people don't evacuate. If you go out and look at there's a book, it's called What Happens When Disaster Strikes, How People Respond When Disaster Strikes and Why, right? By Amanda Ripley. Great read. If you can get it, if you don't want to read, get it on Audible. It's on Audible. Listen to it. It's a great one, right? But it talks about that the whole time, about how people don't evacuate, they don't listen, they don't. And so one of those is knowing that there's got to be somebody out there in this world that helps them live, right? And helps them get out and do what they want to do, right? My least favorite is politics, man. And it's the political piece of it. It's the piece where they think, well, we don't need security, whether it's your corporate office that you can walk into and, without being challenged. It's whether, I went in a hospital not too long ago where I walked in through the 1-day surgery and walked all around the hospital, but yet they had metal weapons detection systems sitting at the main entrance of the hospital, but they weren't covering the other entrances, right? It's the lackadaisical approach to it is probably
Well, I mean, I agree with you. The political poison should have no influence on security, in my opinion. That's why I try to stay apolitical on everything, and that's how security should be, is
Yeah.
apolitical. And I think that's the issue you sometimes have is when you really want to harden and improve security, you've got some wacko that, you know, believes something from this political party and they want to throw their influence on your decision. It's like, look, man, like, do you not want to feel safe when you come to work or have people visit our location or what have you? You know, so these are the steps or the measures we have to put in place, you know?
You know, people don't like to
Of
be
course.
inconvenienced, and that's the reality of it, right? But then when something happens, they want to know why we didn't do something
Yeah.
different to
What
change
was
the
me, right?
outcome.
We're
Right.
preaching to the choir half the time on the security side. I do think I do think, Ron, since I've been in the industry the last 12 years, that security has got more of an emphasis and seat at the table because of people like yourself and other advocates that are really pioneering the shift towards a more safer and secure, more environment. Plus, obviously, the challenges and issues we've had since school. So I think it's more of an area of attention. Going back to your first point about the most positive working part about security, you're right. When you go to an airplane, I always typically sit at the exit row, by the way, because it's a poor man's first class. I get the extra 6 inches of leg room. But I also look for exits when I go out to eat with my wife. You know, like, if we're going to go to a
Bingo.
restaurant, I want to know where the hell exit door is or an escape plan is, right? And
Right.
maybe some people don't think about that all the time. To you and I, it's common sense, but just some basic things you can think about when you're out in public with your significant other, you know?
Yeah, and it's knowing when to react and how to react, right? Because running out the door is not always not always the
Right.
right answer, right? And it's being able to understand what's going on and being able to make that decision, right? And you know, even in, you know, make a decision, you know, whether you wind up being right or wrong, just make one. Don't stand there and twiddle your thumbs,
Right.
right?
Speaking
So,
of my lovely wife, Ron, she's got a question for you, my friend. Good question,
mm,
babe. Where do you feel like security will be in 5 years in schools? Do you feel like there will be any significant improvements? If not, what do you think it will take to get schools up to a better standard? Loaded
well, that's a
question
tough one.
there from the wife. You see, that's why I'm almost smart as her. She's a lot more intelligent than I am.
I know it. Yeah, yeah. Maybe she
I
should be
know,
asking
dude.
these
I'm just an
questions.
idiot up
See,
here on the mic. So
um, you know, I think that I think it's going to improve. We have seen some improvement. I think we're at a better point now than we ever have been as far as schools becoming more secure, right? And I'll say that because, you know, as little as 5, 6, 7 years ago, it was a very much a ebb and flow, right? It was incident happened, my phone rang for 3 weeks wanting to know what we were going to do about school security. By the time 4 weeks came in, phone was not ringing as much. By the time 6 weeks hit, everybody forgot about it. We moved on, and nobody gave me another dime. Right. So that's what we saw that, and then so once within the last couple of years, we've started to see the funding start being released. Right, and I think that is more. Um, I contribute that more to a generational thing, right? So now we've got people such as you, Taylor, and your wife there who grew up during a time where you were going through lockdowns, where you were lockdowns in a school was not an uncommon thing. It was post
right.
Columbine, right? So you were in that era, right? Where I'm pre Columbine and we didn't do anything, right? So in the post Columbine era, parents are holding um, senators and the government officials more accountable for funding for school safety, right? So they're going, hey, you got to create some fundings, which is a result of Alyssa's law, which is a result of various other different laws that have come out. Florida and Texas are probably leading the response right now as far as school safety goes. So I think that we're doing a better job and we're going to continually get better for school safety and as far as the procedures that we implement. What I don't think we're improving on is our mental health. It's addressing our mental health, right? We've got a major mental health problem, and it seems to be something that we just don't want to address, right? We've still got schools that are letting warning signs go and go and go and go and go, and when something happens. So until that starts to improve, and we start understanding what a behavioral threat assessment is, right? Because that's the reality. A lot of schools still don't have any kind of a formal behavioral threat assessment, right? So if you got somebody comes in and makes a threat, how are you trying to figure out if that's a reality? Do they have the means to do it? Is there some kind of help we can get that person, right? We're not seeing a lot of advancement there. We're still seeing the advancement more on the shiny, flashy things. So I think that when we get the mental health addressment as well as the behavioral threat assessments in place, and we start moving towards that, is when we'll start seeing the better advancement, if that makes sense. So I'll be honest with you, I'm not real optimistic. I think it's better than it has been, but I still think we're moving at a snail's pace.
You and I both, brother, when it comes to stuff like, I mean, to your point, some school districts do it better than others. Some have more funding and resources to advance at the right, pace and have the right resources in place. But I mean, I guess why is that? Why isn't, I mean, everyone talks about mental health, but why isn't it not much of a priority with schools? I mean, do people just don't care, or they don't know how to train for that, or maintain that, or support that, or
There's funding issue.
Yeah.
One is we're not funding mental health properly, right? There's long been an issue with school counselors. You can call them what they want to, but they're school schedulers. They're not counselors. We're not letting them be counselors, right? They're dealing with schedules and various other things. We're not letting people do the job that we hired them to do, right? They want to go in and be with these kids, and sometimes it's just turning a blind eye, right? Well, out of sight, out of mind. I don't want to talk about that right now. So I don't know, man. That's something that is probably way out of my league, and something that somebody else needs.
Well, here's a fun question for you, Ron. It's from another end user. As I always say, I've got a lot of end users at SVIP. This is a fun question from Marty Hillman. By the way, Marty works for Oklahoma Gas and Energy, OG&E, in Oklahoma. If you could invent one James Bond style gadget for school security, what would it be? That's a fun question, Ron. I like that question.
You got to have the go-go gadget hat. Man, it would probably be something to do with the locking systems of the schools. It doesn't even have to be a James Bond style gadget. I think there's things out there that exist that we could use, some kind of a mobile that you could lock all the schools down and make barricades pop up, and various other things. So I don't think that I think those things exist. I think that we're just not using them, right? Being able to the cameras, being able to use cameras on your phone, and being able to not only a lot of people have a camera app right on their phone, but it doesn't project the way you want it to be. So maybe something that projected out to show you what's actually going on, some kind of 3D map that you could pop up and x-ray it out. So I mean that's a cool question, but maybe I just need x-ray vision to see what's going on.
There's another company I want to get you in front of, Ron. I won't give them. I'll tell. They're called Volt. If you haven't heard of Volt, I want you to see them. Yeah, they got some cool stuff they're doing as far as like tracking threats and stuff like that, which I think is pretty unique. We got about. Go ahead.
What I was going to say too is we talked about something earlier, but assessments, right? Nobody's out there doing assessments, and so that's something that we do, that I do in house. That I'm not going to West Coast to do it or nothing, but somebody out there does it, right? Find somebody that's qualified to do an assessment on your building and figure out where you stand.
Well, it should be a third party, right? It should be someone not someone that's been there
absolutely.
Day in, day out. You need like a naked eye. You need a real person that doesn't know the environment,
Oh, dude, you would be surprised how many buildings I go in and they're missing something that's right in front of them. Oh, I didn't even see that. That's been that way. You go back and look, it's been that way for 6 months, man. It's I don't know, man. It's just sometimes it's so simple, it's hard, right?
So simple, it's hard.
I mean, it's what it is, man. I mean,
everything you said resonates with me, man. That you obviously with what you're doing and what Matranger has done, and Chief Francis in Seminole County, and Chief Mark Stout in Putnam City Schools. I mean, these are just great guys that I've known personally and I respect. And to your point, man, I know Matranger hits on it, Chief Stout hits on it, Francis hits on it a lot. Is that culture with kids, but not just kids. It's also staff and employees, and see something, say something, but having the ambition and the encouragement for someone to speak up when an SRO is not present or a camera's not shown, you know, saying, hey, look, this looks different, this looks suspicious, I saw this. That can help save a lot of time as well as a lot of lives, man, if you just have that
Yeah,
kind of
nobody wants to do that, man. I mean, it's just like, that's the whole see something, say something thing. That came out, and we should still be riding that road, right?
Yeah.
We still got to get people to say something, right? It's always funny to me whenever you're in an airport and they're like, hey, if you see somebody's luggage and it's they report it to the deal, and you walk by and there's luggage standing all over the place, and they're like, well, has anybody reported that? Oh, we don't know anything about it, right? Because nobody wants to talk about it, man. It's just it goes back to that.
Well, dude, like I see like not single mothers, but when mothers are with their kids and going
Yep.
shopping and their hands are full and their bags are full and they're going to the back of the car to load up the car with the kids and the groceries, it's like I look out for females like that or
Right.
women like that because I know it's going to take them longer to load up their car when they've got their hands full with a kid or a toddler,
Yeah.
you know? So it's like if you would have more decent human beings that would stick around for mama to load up the car, then you
Yeah,
can leave or go
absolutely.
do your thing. Like we would live in a much easier, healthier place, I would think, you know?
That's right.
But
Just
again, I'm preaching to the choir.
just having conversations with people, man. It's just learning how to talk, and that's what I'll tell all your your users out there, man. I mean, just like, if you ever have a question and you want a real answer, hit me up on LinkedIn. Send me a message. I'll answer it for you. I don't have any issue.
Yeah.
It's just, but you be prepared for the truth. If you think that you've got the best product out there and you ask me about that product and I tell you it's crap, don't be prepared, right?
Speaking of products, you guys need to check out Verified if you want us to do it, because what we do is we'll give it to someone like Ron and he'll test it in the field, or we'll give it to someone else and they'll test it in the field. So you want authentic reporting, subscribe to SVIP, or if you're a manufacturer listening in, let us test your product, man. I would love to test your product and give it to someone like Ron so he can test it in the field. That's where it
Yep.
comes. Truth comes. Last 2 minutes here on 2025, man. School's upon us in the next month or so. I guess the biggest thing you're focusing on, man, for the rest of the year. Let's hear it.
I'd say the biggest thing that we got to start pushing, and this is the time to start pushing it, is for states to quit with this grant BS. They got to quit giving grants to schools and start making security a line item, right? It's still ridiculous how many states out there don't have a line item for school safety and security, and schools are pinching and pulling, right? It's still grants. Well, if I give David a grant out here for his school district, and then he goes out and looks at a product that requires a yearly occurring fee, he's probably not going to get that, right? Or he's going to get it and then he's not going to have the money to redo it. So we got to quit with that mess and give schools an actual budget to figure out what they need, right? And then we've got to create some kind of regulation. We've got to get rid of locks, for example. We just replaced a school district's locks. Their entire district had a lock. In 2025, they were using residential style door handles. The maintenance guy had a key ring as big as my head with keys on it, right? We got to get away. We got to get back to the basics and get it figured out. But funding is what's gonna do that, and then some type of regulation, tied to it.
No, I agree, dude. Funding's always a conversation, but not having fucking real legitimate locks on doors and
It's stupid,
residential
dude.
locks, that's insane, dude.
Yeah.
That's insane. Ron, well, it's always a pleasure, dude, to sit down with you. You're always welcome back on SVIP. The open invitation, man. But I guess if people want to learn more about you and get in contact with you, I know you mentioned LinkedIn, but any other places to get in contact with you?
No, I mean, I'm on all the socials, Facebook, Twitter. All you just put my name, man. I'm out there. So LinkedIn's probably the one I'm probably the most, I stay on the most, but anything. Emails ourself@baldwinshell.com if you want to shoot me an email.
Ron, pleasure was mine, friend. I really appreciate the time.
Yeah, man. Always a good one.
All right, guys and girls, that was Ron Self of Baldwin Shell and Construction Company. Go connect with him on LinkedIn if you're not connected with him yet. We'll be back next week on SVIP Live. We're going to sit down with Ben Williams. He's the Director of Security of Houston First Corporation. Ben used to lead security for the Astros, the Houston Astros. So it's going to be a cool conversation around professional venues, professional sports, event centers, etc. And if you're not subscribed yet to SVIP, make sure to hit that QR code up top. And you guys stay safe out there. We'll catch you guys on the next one.
Deuces.
Thank